Hello and welcome back to the first video in a long time without the intro, because I'm going to be talking about some Frank Ocean today, and Frank Ocean is not a physical media guy. I don't know how my viewers are going to feel about this, because I have this sinking feeling that the kind of people who sub to my channel probably don't like R&B or hip-hop and probably are morally opposed to sampling, but we'll see. So the record for the day is Frank's debut mixtape, Nostalgia Ultra, from 2011. Now, this was a very hip album in 2011, apparently.
But it didn't really hit me as being unique or different enough to be all that exciting.
A lot of online music people were crazy into it. For me, I have zero nostalgia ultra for this project. So the backstory to this record is basically that Frank Ocean had a career as a ghostwriter. He was very successful at it, but he wanted a career of his own. So he actually had a deal. He had a deal, I believe, with Def Jam. They weren't greenlighting his debut album, so he kind of took matters into his own hands and made this mixtape, and it was an overwhelming success. As I said, this was a very hip album. It got the label to take him seriously, and his debut studio album came out the next year, and in a lot of ways, this is just a preamble to Channel Orange. Channel Orange is not a revolutionary change from this sound. In a lot of ways, Channel Orange is just Nostalgia Ultra with money. But I'm getting a little bit ahead of myself. So, yeah, mixtape, really, really good original songs. But the thing that characterizes this project, that got him in a little bit of hot water at the time, and the reason that this has not been re-released, to my knowledge in any way, is that there are, I believe, 3 tracks on here where he essentially covers other artists' songs and puts his own spin on them, writes his own lyrics and so forth. To my knowledge, 2 of the artists didn't care, but the third is Litigious. He was also a member of Odd Future, which is something I almost forgot to even mention, because Frank Ocean does not match the aesthetic of what the rest of Odd Future was in 2011. Primarily because he was an adult and most of them were a bunch of literal teenagers at the time. But anyway, after that incredibly inadequate review, let's get to the tracks. So the album opens up with a video game reference, with some coins slotting into an arcade, going into the next track. So the first real track on the album is a really cool take on Coldplay's 2008 song Strawberry Swing. And it's a really good song. I love the lyrics about childhood nostalgia and longing for those more innocent days. But that also just might be me. The original Strawberry Swing is a very nostalgic song for me. It's one of the last big Coldplay songs I enjoyed, but who knows? Maybe if I had heard this in 2011, I might have felt the exact same way about this, so. Novocaine is phenomenal. Maybe the best original track on here. And not only does it boast very catchy music, the lyrics are great, witty, and it features the kind of character storytelling that Frank excels at. As a track, this is an easy 9 out of 10. In my notes, I wrote cool acoustic sad boy stuff, but listening to it again, it's actually a fairly well thought out lyric about how, you know, humanity is sinful but we all try to be better. It's actually a really good lyric. I like it, except for the part where he says that he doesn't believe that we landed on the moon, which is either a really interesting metaphor or really stupid. So we get another interlude, this time about Frank being with a girl who doesn't want to listen to Radiohead. Honestly, this would be kind of pointless, but it actually really amused me because it reminds me of those Jesse play XYZ even if we scare the hose memes. This track is catchy, is very self-aware, it's good stuff. I dig the sort of pseudo-80s drum thing he has going on. The bass line here is incredibly catchy, to the point where I did not hear this album for about 3 months, and yet that bass line would still sometimes pop into my head when I was doing something or driving somewhere. It's really quite infectious. I really like this track too. I don't remember it super well when the album is over, but something about the instrumental track really sounds great while it's on. I especially like the keys and the way something in the bass reminds me of Stevie Wonder, which I recognize is an incredibly cheap comparison. That's kind of like saying any rock music after the 60s reminds me of the Beatles, you know? But it's still a really good track. I think it's about getting a girl pregnant without intending to do so, but I'm not at all sure. Anyway, good track. So we have another video game interlude. There Will Be Tears is another really good track. Cool electropop conjoined to a moody chorus. It's not my favorite thing on the album, and if it were longer than 2.5 minutes, it would probably get a little bit annoying. But Frank wisely keeps it short and sweet. Swim Good is probably the second best track on the album, and an absolute career highlight. It's a very dark track lyrically. The chorus and hook is about a man committing suicide by driving his car into the ocean. This is another good track that I forget about. It belongs to that subcategory of songs that you know the intro to, but somehow the rest of it just eludes you. Which probably says more about me than it does about the song, but nonetheless, I think this is one of the lesser tracks on the record. So American Wedding is a kind of pseudo cover of Hotel California by the Eagles. I actually might like it a little bit more than the original, but I don't like the original track that much, so that's kind of not as much of a compliment as you might think. It also got him into a little bit of hot water. If you've never read anything about the Eagles are they're not especially nice people, and they're very, very commercial. They're all about the money. So, as you can imagine, Don Henley did not take kindly to Frank Ocean using his track. And, yeah, from what I understand, he's not even allowed to play it live. The point of that whole spiel being that if this video goes down, you'll know why. And so we have another video game interlude that I actually completely forgot about. The final track on the album is Nature Feels, another pseudo cover, this time of MGMT's seminal Electric Feels. It's kind of like the Strawberry Swing cover in that I like what Frank does here. I like his take on this song, I like his new lyrics. But for me, the original Electric Feel is just head and shoulders above this. It's funny because I didn't say this with Strawberry Swing, but Frank Ocean is definitely more talented than Coldplay, and Frank Ocean in a lot of ways is probably more talented than MGMT. But for me at least, there's such a charisma to the original version of Electric Feel, and I don't think Frank quite captures that, even though, as I said, he turns in an excellent performance. Nostalgia Ultra is a very good release. It is not a masterpiece by any means, but it is very strong, and if you're a Frank Ocean fan, you should definitely hear it at least once. The main problem with this project just comes down to the fact that it's a mixtape in the older sense of the word, where it's a taster. It's supposed to whet your appetite for more songs and a real album from this artist, as opposed to what mixtapes have sort of become in the last 10 years, which is basically glorified EPs or albums that get put out when the artist doesn't want to do the full promo cycle. And as such, it's very much a time capsule, taking us back to an era when Frank Ocean was not a major artist the way he is today, or even the way he was in 2012. I had a bit in the intro that I cut out about how it's a very substantial mixtape that is almost an album, but I disagree with that completely. This is a mixtape through and through. There's a lot of stuff on here that is phenomenal. There are 3 or 4 tracks on this release that are some of the best Frank Ocean you're ever going to hear and that absolutely deserve your time. But there's also definitely a few B-side type tracks on here, and so I can't really rate this as high as I might want to. For me, personally, this gets I would say a low 7 out of 10 is what I would rate this album. It's very strong for what it is, but what was to come is so much better than it that it honestly almost just gets dinged a point on principle. But anyway, don't let all that negativity fool you. This is still a very strong release, and if you've never heard Frank Ocean before, this might be an interesting place for you to start. But if you've already steeped yourself in Blonde and Channel Orange, don't go in expecting some sort of world-shattering masterpiece, because you just won't find that. But until next time, I will see you all later. So yeah,